As you may know from the post I made last week, life has been a little different lately. I really needed to create something that felt good and that helped me cope. So I decided to grab my watercolors and have some satisfying playtime in my sketchbook. As soon as I opened my first watercolor set, I saw all of the colors and thought, these are perfect for fall. So let's do some fall inspired pages. There's nothing more satisfying to me than just letting paint flow in watercolor stripes. Even though I'm working on dry paper, I wet my palette enough that the colors blend beautifully together and move easily across the page. Once that first layer dried, I felt like doing a little bit more. I wanted to enjoy the process longer, so I added more pigment on top, making most of it darker. This is how that dried, and because we're doing fall inspired pages, I wanted to paint leaves on top. I decided to use the white watercolor. And I know using white in watercolors is very frowned upon, but I didn't care because this is about me enjoying my sketchbook time. So I used it to paint a few white leaves on top, with the idea being that, of course, the pigment underneath would move and mix in with the white. That third leaf, I felt I truly ruined that one with the stem. So that's why you see me tapping my fingers because I was thinking about trashing the page. Yes, that still happens to me daily if I dislike what I make. But then I thought, okay, maybe I can save it. So I added a lot of water and lifted some of the pigment with a paper towel, and then carried on adding a few more leaves. When everything dried, I went back with more white to make some of the areas a bit more opaque, and then with my fine liners, I started outlining the marks left by the dried watercolor. As I drew those lines peacefully, I thought about how close I was to ripping out the page earlier. Even after years of practice, a year doing sketchbook videos, and 7 years as a full time artist, I still have those this isn't working moments. But now, with practice and reflection, I mostly avoid the artistic tantrums and just carry on. Remember, not everything we make has to be a finished piece. Sometimes you just need to art for your own satisfaction. For this page, my idea was to have the lines cross the leaves, thinner within the shapes and thicker outside them. This is truly such a satisfying project, just drawing the lines following what the paint left behind, and then, of course, you can add more lines to echo the existing ones. And there's a deliciousness in taking a thicker marker and going over the lines you already have to, of course, make them thicker. It just feels nice, and it really, really helps me calm my anxious mind. I may have overworked this page a bit because I was enjoying all the line play, but I still love how it turned out, and more than anything, it makes me happy. Honestly, it still surprises me that something so simple could look like an art print you'd find in a decor shop somewhere. Let's move to idea number two. I wanted to enjoy painting fall leaves, a simple idea. I wanted to start by painting a maple tree leaf, but I don't know what that was. I somehow painted an octagon. So I just left it alone for a bit, painted a second leaf, and as I did that, I decided to turn everything I already had on the page into an asymmetrical background. Then I looked up a reference photo because clearly I had no idea what I was doing and I wanted to give it another go. So I dried the background and I started painting a simpler leaf, an oval shape with irregular edges. Gave the maple leaf a second try, and of course, now with the reference image, it's much easier and it looks like it's supposed to. So, again, a little bit of brown, then a little bit of blue, and that leaf was done. I kept going, painting leaves of different shapes and sizes, filling the page wherever it felt right, dropping colors into one another, letting them blend. It's one of the most satisfying parts of watercolor for me. Once everything dried, I grabbed my colored pencils to outline the leaves and bring more texture and line work. One of my signature things is to offset the outline slightly. It gives the page a playful, sketchy charm that I love. I really enjoy the freedom of the process. Not only does it take the pressure off making mistakes, but it's also super creative and playful. I even changed the shape of that third leaf when I outlined it. I also love that I can just mark make on top and everything kind of looks good. So after having my fill of drawing on top of my watercolor drawings and adding a few dots, I was done with the second page. Moving on to the third idea that is super satisfying. And this one might be the simplest of the day, but I knew I was going to enjoy it so much because I love making puddles of paint. And that's exactly what I did. I started puddling paint on my page, just letting it move and mix freely, shaping it into loose flower forms as I went. Most of the color ended up on different places for each puddle, so I tilted my sketchbook slightly to let gravity help me out and put the puddles in the bottom and middle where I wanted them. Then, with a very fine brush, I just took pigment from those puddles and extended it down, painting thin lines to represent stems. This felt so nice. I really recommend you try it. So satisfying to see the bit of paint extend into a thin line. Yummy. I let the flowers dry just a little bit, and then I came back with a darker color to create the centers, letting that color bleed into the rest of the flower a little bit. And for some of the flowers, I did pull that dark color down too onto the lines that I already had. Done, and this is how it dried. Pretty enough to be a little print as well, but maybe a notebook cover? I don't know, but my mood was definitely improving as I created. For the fourth idea, I wanted to do some fall fruits, so I thought apples. Again, here I'm gonna do what makes me the happiest, so I'm loosely painting the apples with very watered down color, and then adding other colors on top and letting them bleed to each other. This is our process today. First, I just made two circles for the apples, and then I thought to paint wedges and an apple cut in half. This is super loose, you don't need to be perfect. And right now it's a little bit hard to distinguish what these are as the colors mix into the other spaces, but the idea is to play and enjoy these flowing colors on your page. I helped everything dry with my heat gun and then added some leaves playing around. Let it dry a little bit again, and then I added more color on top to further define the apples I had already painted. When everything dried completely, as a final step, I grabbed the purple coloring pencil and again super freely I outlined the apples, just trying to give a little bit more structure to the drawing. Painted some brown seeds on top, and that's it. Here it is, beautiful, satisfying, simple, and I like it. How do you like them apples? For my fifth idea, I wanted to paint another fall fruit, so I chose a pumpkin. I had envisioned a long and tall pumpkin to take most of the space in the page, but when I sketched it, it wasn't looking right. So I erased that, looked for a reference image, and turned my notebook to the side to have a landscape composition. Again, loosely sketched the pumpkin, and when I was happy with the drawing, I made the lines that I did want a little bit darker, making it all into a single silhouette and erasing the lines I did not need completely. Then I erased the rest of the lines to make them as light as I could without losing them. And then I started to saturate all of the pumpkin with a little bit of color and a lot of water. I'm really concentrating to stay within the lines of the silhouette I drew, but I'm not worrying about which part of the pumpkin I'm painting. I'm just letting color flow freely into everything. I'm treating every component of the pumpkin as one single shape. And once everything was wet, I dropped more and more color onto it. So nice and satisfying, zero worries about the end result, just again enjoying the process. This is how the pumpkin dried. For a minute, I thought about painting all of the background black, but I thought maybe this time I wouldn't mess with the dried watercolor edges against the pureness of the blank paper. In case you want to see how blacking out the background would look, here's a little mock-up I did of that. Next, for the sixth idea, again, I wanted to paint something fall inspired, but also very satisfying to create, so I thought I would fill my page with branches and leaves. Because it's simple and it flows easily, all you have to do is saturate your round brush with paint, and then you put it down on the paper, push down a little bit, pull, and you have a leaf shape. Because I'm using a small brush, I do go back around the other side, but it's still a very soft and beautiful process painting leaves. And seeing all of the little leaves come together into a branch and starting to fill the white space makes me really happy. I left some areas of my page leaf free because I needed to have space since I wanted to add little birds to it. I don't know why when I think of fall, I think of birds on branches. I also wanted to go simple and satisfying for the birds, so I just painted these thick teardrop shapes, leaving the space in the bottom free so that I could drop a second color in that area and have them both mix with each other. I especially loved how that little amount of red looked when I dropped it onto the brown bird. I let everything dry and then I came back to the birds, gave them eyes and little beaks, and that was it. I enjoyed every second of painting this page and I love the result so much. For my seventh idea, I painted a background with the puddle of paint I had left over from painting the leaves. I helped it dry with my heat gun and then I wanted to paint leaves on top, yes again, because I just enjoyed the previous page so much. But of course, we're doing something a little different now. I started by painting two branches with this beautiful maroon color, again enjoying every single leaf I created as I dragged the paint through. Once those were done, I thought I didn't have enough space for a third one, so I started painting smaller branches with orange where I could fit them. I was rotating my book and just adding them at random. Then I thought it would be nice to have a third type of leaf overlapping the ones I already had done, but to make them different and also a little bit see-through, I only painted the outline of each leaf for this third type of branch. Now, for this page, I was happy I didn't have to dry the paint in between layers because as I painted some leaves, the other ones dried. My impatient self really appreciated that fact. When I was done with the brown branches, I still had a couple of spaces that felt a little too empty, so I just painted 3 larger leaves on there and I was done. This was such an enjoyable process, soft and peaceful, and I think I ended up getting a very nice pattern. And that was going to be my final idea for the day. If you've seen my videos before, you know I usually do 7 pages, but I had an additional idea popped into my head. I was enjoying the process so much, I just wanted to take more time and create one more page. I wanted to give painting a pumpkin another shot, doing something similar to what I did before, but also a little bit different. I drew a pumpkin directly with my brush and with watercolor and then saturated the area of it with my dirty paint water. It was okay. I did not need the pumpkin to be clear because I knew I was going to drop color onto it too. Yes, I enjoyed this so much the first time I wanted to do it again, but this time I went heavier with the amount of color I put in. And yes, my pumpkin is everything but completely orange, but that's okay because I enjoy the process so much and I love seeing the colors bleeding to each other. I just love it. My paper was so soaked, it was going to take a long while to dry, and I just wanted to carry on. So once again, I helped it dry with my heat gun. And I think because I did use the heat gun on a drawing that was so saturated with water, I got a lot more cauliflowers as it dried. I think many more than the ones I would have gotten if I left the page dry on its own. It's just a theory, I'm not sure, but I think it affects it. Anyhow, it didn't matter because I wanted it dry and to move on to the next step, which was painting 2 large cute eyes on the pumpkin along with a tiny sweet smile. I also gave it rosy cheeks and little eyebrows. Then I painted some coils and a leaf onto the top of the pumpkin, and with a very thin brush, I outlined it. And just like I did with the color pencils, I offset this outline to make it a little bit more interesting. I also used the thin brush to paint blurry, transparent thin lines on top of the pumpkin to give it a more recognizable shape. And that's it. I think it turned out so cute. I truly love this little fellow so much. I wasn't expecting on painting him or doing 8 pages today, but I'm glad I did because I love him. And because of that, I've also added him as a cute sticker in my shop. Here are all of the other pages we painted today. Some, of course, I like more than others, but all of them bring a smile to my face because they were so satisfying to create, and they definitely improved my mood. There's something about this, trust me, connecting to the moment you're at. It calms you down. It makes you understand that you can breathe, that you can take a break, trust life, trust the universe, trust God, and that everything will be okay. Thank you again for watching. I hope you have the most wonderful day and that I'll see you next week with a brand new video. Bye.